In a striking escalation of U.S. policy toward Venezuela, President Donald Trump confirmed on October 15, 2025, that he had authorized the CIA to undertake covert operations inside Venezuelan territory. His announcement came amid mounting tensions over a series of U.S. military strikes against vessels in the Caribbean that Washington claims are involved in drug trafficking. Caracas responded immediately by condemning the decision as a violation of international law, promising to lodge a complaint with the United Nations. Trump's admission marks one of the rare occasions a sitting U.S. president has publicly acknowledged authorizing clandestine intelligence operations abroad. Analysts and diplomats say it may signal a deeper strategic shift in Washington's posture toward Nicolás Maduro's government. Nicolás Maduro has served as president of Venezuela since 2013, following the death of Hugo Chavez. In January 2025, he was sworn into a third term after a highly disputed election held in July 2024. The opposition and many international observers rejected the legitimacy of that election, arguing that it was rigged and lacked credible oversight. Edmundo González, the opposition candidate who claimed victory, fled into exile, and the opposition's most prominent figure, Maria Corina Machado, went into hiding. In October 2025, Machado was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in recognition of her efforts to restore democracy in Venezuela. During recent months, Maduro has sought to consolidate security powers. In September 2025, he signed a decree expanding his authority to mobilize armed forces nationwide and to place key institutions like public services and the oil sector under military control if U.S. forces were to enter Venezuelan territory. In public statements, Maduro has accused Washington of aggression and of plotting regime change. When asked by reporters, why did you authorize the CIA to go into Venezuela? And is there more information you can share about these strikes on the alleged? Trump replied, well, I can't do that. Then he continued, I authorized for two reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. They came in through the border. They came in because we had an open border policy. The other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela, and a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea. So you get to see that, but we're going to stop them by land. Also, his comments signal that his central rationale is twofold: alleged prisoner releases into the U.S. and drug trafficking by sea. But the shift toward land operations raises fresh concerns about escalation. Immediately, the Venezuelan government denounced Trump's statement as a violation of international law and the UN Charter, warning that the move crossed a dangerous boundary. In recent weeks, the U.S. military has launched multiple strikes on boats in the Caribbean. Washington asserts these vessels were engaged in narcotics smuggling and claims at least 5 vessels have been destroyed, with approximately 27 people killed in the operations. One of these strikes, announced by Trump, occurred on October 14, 2025, when 6 alleged traffickers were killed in international waters off Venezuela. Trump framed these as part of an expanded narco-terrorism campaign, though he offered no public evidence identifying the vessels or their operators. During the press session, the anchor asked, the fact that U.S. forces have already hit 5 boats, killing dozens, most of them linked to Venezuela, how solid is the intel behind these deadly operations? The administration offered no new clarity. In response, Rebecca Hansen, Associate Professor of Sociology and Latin American Studies at the University of Florida, observed that the intelligence basis is opaque. She noted that the vessels targeted are not clearly linked to the Venezuelan government, but are typically go-fast vessels operating between Venezuela and nearby Caribbean islands such as Trinidad and Tobago. She asserted that it is highly unlikely those boats could complete a journey all the way to the U.S. mainland, undermining the claim that they posed direct drug threats to U.S. territory. The moderator raised a question many analysts have asked. Given the CIA's checkered history in Latin America, including coups, regime change, and covert operations, is Washington now reviving an old playbook? Rebecca Hansen cautioned against drawing direct parallels to the Cold War. It's not clear that just because the Trump administration is performing these more aggressive tactics, that it is actually interested in any kind of long-term engagement, military engagement in Venezuela. She noted that the Venezuelan opposition historically has pushed a strategy of maximum pressure in hopes that Maduro might resign without needing a full US intervention. She also argued that Trump's actions appear to mix domestic political theatre with foreign signalling, intended both for US audiences and for allies and adversaries abroad. She went on, "But I think it's also incorrect to make these comparisons because this is not at all about ideology for Trump, right? I'm not even sure it's about ideology for Rubio." The reference to Rubio evokes Florida Senator Marco Rubio, a long-standing hardliner on Venezuela. In short, Hansen suggested that strategic ambiguity may be more important to the Trump administration than a definitive escalation. Trump defended the CIA authorization and broader tactics on several fronts. He claimed Venezuela had emptied its prisons and allowed release of individuals who entered the US across the southern border. He argued drug trafficking through Venezuelan maritime routes had to be stopped and that land operations now deserve scrutiny. He said, "We are certainly looking at land now because maritime routes are largely controlled." He also declined to clarify whether Maduro was a target in these operations, but critics abound from legal scholars to international organizations. Many argue the strikes lack transparent evidence and may violate international law, especially absent a formal war declaration. Venezuela asserted that the CIA's deployment and US strikes infringed the United Nations Charter. Maduro's government accused Washington of masterminding a coup using the CIA. "No to regime change. No to coup d'etat orchestrated by the CIA," he declared in public remarks. In prior months, Maduro had already criticized US naval deployments in the Caribbean as part of a broader regime change strategy. Venezuela has cut many communication channels with the US, and officials say diplomatic relations are deeply strained. Internally, Maduro expanded his security powers to preempt possible incursions. The decision to publicly authorize CIA operations may serve multiple audiences. Domestically, it appeals to voters who support strong border security and aggressive measures against drug trafficking. The ambiguity keeps legal scrutiny at bay and maintains political flexibility. For the Trump administration, public acknowledgement offers a cover of accountability while preserving operational secrecy. That said, lawmakers have expressed concern that the shift toward overt military tactics may lack sufficient oversight and legal justification. For Maduro, the US move reinforces long-standing accusations that Washington is bent on overthrowing his government. In his address to military and civilian leaders, he labelled the CIA's operations a coup d'etat scheme and mobilised domestic defences. The awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize to opposition figure Maria Corina Machado adds symbolic weight to the domestic struggle. Her recognition by the international community amplifies calls for democratic change and further isolates Maduro's government. Regionally, other countries in Latin America are watching closely. The escalating confrontation between the US and Venezuela could affect migration flows, security cooperation and alliances within organizations such as the OAS and the UN. Legal scholars warn that broad claims of unlawful combatant status for traffickers may erode protections under international law. Without transparency about the intelligence basis for the strikes, critics say the actions risk being branded as extrajudicial killings. Moreover, the shift toward potential land operations inside Venezuela raises the spectre of escalation into open conflict, a possibility once dismissed, now re-entered into serious strategic discussions. At present, much remains uncertain. The Trump administration has not provided detailed evidence of the intelligence underpinning the strikes nor the covert operations. It is unclear whether land actions will materialize or if this is mainly a signaling tactic. The Venezuelan government, meanwhile, appears to be preparing for any contingency. The newly granted security powers to Maduro, combined with rhetorical escalation, suggest Caracas is readying for both defensive and political battles. If the US proceeds with assaults on land or expands covert actions, it risks provoking a sustained confrontation. The international community, including the United Nations, may be forced to weigh in more robustly. And as I close, it's worth remembering the voices trying to decode what is rhetoric and what is real, and to watch closely how each side moves in the days ahead.